This video is sponsored by Squarespace. What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and ever since battery health was introduced back in iOS 11, a lot of you guys have been asking me questions about how you can keep that percentage as high as possible for as long as possible. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips on how I've personally maintained 100% battery life here on my iPhone 11 Pro, which I've been using every day for the last 4 months, and on my iPhone XR here, which I've used daily ever since 2018. Now I also have my current daily device right here, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and you can see this guy is at 98%. This is the one that my SIM card is in most of the time right now. And then I also have over here my iPhone XS Max, which I use pretty much every day throughout 2018, and that is at 93%. But this one did stay at 100% for a little over 7 months, almost 8 months actually. This one stayed at 100% battery capacity. So I'm going to share some tips on how I've maintained such good battery life and battery health on all of these devices. Now also, make sure you guys do check out my video on the best battery saving tips for your iPhone. That video is more about the software changes you should be addressing, whereas this video is going to be more about kind of the daily use and the daily maintenance and the hardware side of things. But if you use the tips in this video in combination with the tips in that video, you will see amazing results on your iPhone when it comes to battery life. All right, so now let's discuss the battery health panel inside of settings and what it actually means. So like I said, this feature was first introduced way back on iOS 11.3 to inform you of your battery's overall health and inform you if your iPhone is able to run at its peak performance, which is another important aspect that you need to pay attention to with time. And of course, you can see mine says that my maximum capacity is at 100%. Now, this is going to tell you if your battery is strong enough to operate at peak performance, which is basically like running CPU intensive games, benchmark testing, shooting long 4K videos and things like that. It will just tell you if your phone can work extra hard when it's needed. And with time, the lithium-ion battery in the iPhones will degrade and it's not going to perform as good, of course, as it did on the day you bought it. And this goes with any device with a lithium-ion battery, not just an iPhone. When the battery degrades over time, you slowly start to notice that you have less and less time between charges. And according to Apple, a normal battery is designed to retain up to 80% of its original capacity at 500 complete charge cycles when operating under normal conditions. So notice how Apple uses the term charge cycles. This is very, very important to know. So a charge cycle is basically when you charge your phone to 100% and then it dies later that night or the next day, and then you charge it back up from 0% to 100% again. Now, just because you don't specifically wait until your phone dies doesn't mean that you don't have charge cycles on your battery, because anytime you charge your phone, it's adding into a charge cycle. So for instance, if you start your day off at 100% battery life and then you plug it in before bed with say 25% left, that means that once you use your phone again the next day and get down to 75% battery life, you will have gone through one full charge cycle. This is because, of course, the first day you discharge 75% of the battery, which is what got you to 25%. And then the next day you discharge the other 25% when you got to 75% battery. So basically anytime that you charge and discharge your phone, there's math going on behind the scenes inside of the battery to determine when you go through a full charge cycle. I hope you guys are following along with me here. And you can already start to see why it makes so much more sense to charge your phone well before it dies, if at all possible. And while it is recommended to stay around 80% of battery life, I've always let my phones charge overnight. So I've done this with every iPhone I've ever had, and I've always had the best battery life out of any of my friends and never really had any kind of battery drain issues at all. And charging your phone overnight is not necessarily bad for your iPhone because it uses normal charging speeds to reach 80%, and then it switches over to a slower trickle charge until you get to 100%. And then once you're at 100%, your phone starts to run solely off of the charger's electricity and not the actual lithium-ion battery itself. So no, it is not bad for the battery to charge it overnight like some people tend to think, but the sweet spot is 50 to 80%. So if you can always keep your iPhone around that percentage or in that range, you will be golden. Just don't charge your phone overnight if you're already over 80%. So if you're on like 80, 90, 95% before you go to bed, there's no point in charging your phone. You're only gonna, hurt your battery. So only if it's below, 50% should you charge your phone overnight. And before we move on to the next tip, I wanted to share a little bit more about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to build beautiful websites with ease, even if you have zero knowledge of coding. And Squarespace is now my preferred way of building simple websites quickly. And as a web designer, I've even begun transferring some of my existing sites over to their platform. And it's not just because of their wide selection of templates and themes, it's also for their drag and drop block builder, and most importantly, their built-in marketing tools. When I build sites on other platforms, I have to manually install plugins for things like SEO, email marketing, analytics, and those pop-up banners that you always see. But with Squarespace, it's all built in and ready for you to use. It's just a time saver, and the files don't conflict and break your site like they do with other platforms. It's just very, very nice. So whether you want to start a blog, an online store, a personal website to stand out when you're trying to get your next job, or just a site to share your art or photography, there are tons of beautiful templates already built for you, so you could save time and just fill in your info. Or of course, you can draw inspiration from these templates and then customize the site to differentiate from the rest. It's completely up to you. And when you combine that with the marketing tools added to it, I think that makes Squarespace the best all-in-one solution out there right now, especially given the price. So if you want to create an awesome site today, head on over to squarespace.com/BrandonButch to enjoy a free trial and 10% off the purchase of a website or a domain. That of course will be linked down in the description below. So you also have the optimized battery charging feature right here. So this was just introduced with iOS 13, and that slows down the process even further by keeping your battery hovering around 80% until you're about to wake up and start using your phone again. And it knows this based on machine learning and basically just how you use your phone over time. So the longer you have it enabled, the more accurate it will become at kind of just knowing your patterns of when you go to sleep and when you use your phone throughout the day and night. So instead of going from like 99% to 100% via trickle charging, this new feature will keep your phone around 80% until it thinks you're about to use your phone again, like when you're about to wake up, and then it's going to charge it the rest of the way up. So it's pretty useful, and it definitely does make your battery last longer. Now, another tip I can give you is to keep your iPhone away from heat as much as possible. So I see people all the time going to the beach with their iPhones, and they'll kind of just leave them in the sun. They'll leave them like on their towel or something like that, still in the sun. And it makes me cringe so hard because heat is the #1 enemy of lithium-ion batteries. So you want to keep it away from heat as much as possible. And the same goes for cold weather, but not quite as much since the lithium-ion batteries do heat themselves up. But still, Apple recommends to use your phone in temperatures from 30 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit and nothing over or below. Now, another tip is that if your iPhone gets really hot when it's charging, you may want to remove the case that you have on it. And the reason for this is because the case may be acting as a barrier and basically just slow down the whole heat dissipation from your iPhone. So your iPhone and that lithium-ion battery need room to breathe, and certain cases can kind of restrict that passageway for air, especially really tight cases. Like I would imagine maybe something like the OtterBox cases or something like that. I wouldn't really think that most cases trap heat like that as much these days anymore, but it's definitely something to consider if you do notice your phone getting hot while it's charging. Another tip is to stay away from knockoff Chinese chargers. So you get what you pay for, and many studies have proven that cheap iPhone chargers are really, really bad for your iPhone. Not only are they cheaply made and will rip and tear much quicker than the cable from Apple would, but they can also cause damage to your device and impact the overall battery capacity. Now, some of these chargers have been proven to power surge iPhones and iPads, which can lead to hardware damage and also impacting the capacity of the battery itself. So just avoid cheap cables if at all possible. And if you lost your original cable and you don't want to buy another one, an official one from Apple, because they are pretty expensive, I would buy from someone more trusted like an Anker or a Belkin or something like that before I bought something, just because it's high rated and cheap on Amazon. So just keep that in mind when it comes to chargers. And the final tip is to not use a wireless charger all of the time. Only use a wireless charger when you're in need of a quick and convenient charge, but definitely do not replace regular charging with wireless charging. Now, Apple did include a fast charger with the new iPhone 11 Pros this year, and I normally say to always avoid using the fast charger as well, but I don't have enough data to say whether or not it's bad to use Apple's fast charger every single day or not. But anyways, the reason you don't want to use a wireless charger or a fast charger all the time is because the process when it comes to charging involves a higher voltage to be sent to the iPhone's battery, which results in a rapid rise in temperature. And that's why I normally use just a normal charger and not the fast charger most of the time, throughout the day, especially at night, unless of course I need to charge up quickly. But most of the time I would avoid using a wireless charger or a fast charger every single time you charge your phone. You can use them, I'm not saying it's bad, but don't use them every single time, especially wireless chargers. And one other thing I wanted to mention as well is that it is worth it to change the battery every 3 years if you're planning on keeping your phone for a long time. And this especially goes with pretty much the older the iPhone gets, the more frequently you're gonna have to replace the battery. But still, even if you have like a 11 Pro, 3 years from now, you may want to just get a new battery in it if you plan on keeping this phone long term. Pretty much, you can just look at the battery capacity, and once it gets down to like 80%, that's probably when you should consider getting a new battery, maybe 85%. But most of the time, if you follow all these tips I mentioned in this video and combine that with my battery saving tips video in iOS 13, which I have linked up in the cards, you will probably last many years without having to get a new battery. Just remember to charge your phone anytime you can and just follow every other tip I mentioned in this video and you should be good to go. And you should notice your battery health staying at 100% or at least in the 90% for at least a year or two. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did learn something new and you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss more videos just like this one. I'm sure I will have an updated guide for this once iOS 14 does come out. So be sure to stay tuned to that. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.